All right, we're taping.
I've never had sex. Well, I also don't drink. I don't smoke, I don't do drugs, and I don't drink coffee. I'm a Mormon. And I've lived in New York City for 6 years as a Mormon. And it's hard to live in New York City if you don't drink or if you don't smoke, but it's especially hard to live in New York City if you don't have sex. And because I don't have sex, the longest relationship I've ever been able to sustain is 4 weeks. And that was because for 2 of them, he was out of town. There's this huge part of me that wants to be considered sexy. But if you're not selling sex, then you really shouldn't advertise. So I never get to come across as sexy. But one time, I came across this 1940 slip. It was dark navy blue, lacy on top, and then silk. And it was the sexiest thing I'd ever seen. I tried it on. And I looked in the mirror. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm sexy. Wow, who knew I could be sexy? And so I bought it and I put it in a drawer, and no guy has ever seen me in it. Life is all about making choices. Sometimes we have to choose between right and wrong. Do I do my homework or do I copy it off my friend? Other times we have to decide what to eat for lunch. Do I go for the salad or do I buy my favorite chocolate milkshake? But when we are forced to choose between the values we've been taught and the conflicting values of our friends, we are forced to decide for ourselves what truly matters. Speaking on NPR's The Moth in 2006, Elna Baker recounts how moving to New York City challenged her in ways she never imagined. Yes Means Yes by Elna Baker. I know that Mormons are notorious for saying no to things, and you would think, as a person who says no to a lot of things, I wouldn't be any fun. But while I do say no to some things, I try to say yes to everything else. I learned the power of saying yes when I was going to NYU. They used to have these career fairs, and I discovered that if I said yes to all the questions they asked, I could get a cool highlighter with 3 different colors. This all led up to the mother of conventions. I was at the Marriott and I glanced beneath the table and I saw a badge. And it said Bob Barrett, 7-Eleven convention. And I was like, yes. So that night I got all dressed up and me and my 3 friends went to that convention. It was 1,500 7-Eleven employees and us. And my friend turns to me and says, Elna, I dare you to make a toast. So I picked up a knife and I went tink, tink, tink on my glass and I said, I'd like to make a toast to 7-Eleven for redefining convenience. And everyone cheered. And the thing that I love so much about saying yes is that where you start at the beginning of the day and where you end up can be 2 totally different places depending on all the things that you say yes to. But then there's this other part of my life, which is that I do say no to a lot of things. And with sex, the thing I've learned is it's one thing to say no to having sex with someone you've only known for 2 weeks. But it's a whole other experience to say no to having sex with someone when you feel like you're in love. I met my yes counterpart a year ago, and his name was Nick. And when I met him, I was like, you. And he was like, you. And we were like, yes. Our first date was amazing. We had so much fun, and we just kept going on adventures. I didn't tell him I was Mormon because I thought, you know what? In addition to being Mormon, I am a lot of other things. But I truthfully didn't want to tell him I was Mormon because I wanted to get to date him. And I knew that it probably wouldn't work out if he knew I was Mormon. So as casually as you can bring that up in a conversation a couple weeks into dating him, I said, oh, by the way, I'm Mormon. Can you be with a Mormon? And he said yes, and so we kept on dating. And then the sex thing came up. And he asked me, are we gonna have sex? And I said no. And then he did that thing where like he started to pull away. And I could tell he was starting to phase me out. So I started thinking, well, why would he want to phase me out? Oh, it's because I'm Mormon. And it's because I won't have sex. And then I started to think, well, what if he's the love of my life? And I end up regretting this decision for the rest of my life. What if he's right and I'm making this crazy, irrational decision for this totally idiotic reason? And then I started to think about how sex is a natural progression of things, and how maybe I could have sex. And then we went out again. We made grilled cheese sandwiches and put on a movie. I was wet from the rain, so I said, I'm just gonna change it to something else. I walked into my bedroom. I was just gonna put on a t-shirt. I opened the drawer and I saw that blue slip. And I thought, what if I put that on? And then I thought, why would you want to put that on? It's the middle of the afternoon on a Tuesday. And then I thought, well, I own that. And I've never worn it. And what is the sex thing? I can do that. I can say yes to having sex. And the thing that I love so much about saying yes is that when you do say yes, everything can change. And so I put it on, and I walked into that living room, and we started kissing. And the moment was building, and I leaned into his ear, and I heard myself say, you need to find out if God exists. And he was like, what? And I was like, never mind. So we started kissing again. And again, I leaned into his ear, and I heard myself say, how can you know if God exists unless you've prayed? And he was like, what? And I thought, what am I doing? All I want to do is have sex right now, but instead I have Tourette syndrome. So I turned to him and said, well, the only reason I believe in God is because I prayed. And I got an answer. And so all these choices that I make are a result of that feeling. He asked me, do you want me to pray? And I said yes. And he said okay, and so we said goodbye. I didn't hear from him for 2 weeks. And when I did, we agreed to meet up. So we met up, and I asked the question. I said, did you pray? And he said yes. And he told me how he sat in a room in silence, and he prayed, and he asked if God existed. And he sat there for a long time, and he listened. And he realized that even if he did hear an answer, it would just be him telling himself that he had heard an answer because he wanted to be with me. And that it wouldn't be real. And that was it. We broke up. And as upset as I was that he didn't get the answer I wanted him to get, I totally understood where he was coming from. Because he tried as hard as he possibly could to find God for me. And I tried as hard as I possibly could to have sex for him. But in the heat of the moment, all I could do was bring up God. You know, I used to think that I didn't have sex because I was Mormon, but in that moment, I realized that I don't have sex because I don't want to. And that sometimes saying yes really does mean no. Thank you.